Hi, I'm Sian Ryan and I am head trainer here at Developing Dogs near Ely. And this video is going to tackle the subject of dominance. This is such a huge topic and I'm literally going to talk about it for 2 or 3 minutes, so we're not going to go into all the ins and outs, but the fundamental point that I want to get across is your dog is not trying to take over. Your dog is not trying to dominate you. They are not dominant. Dogs do what works. So this may come as a sort of massive surprise. This may challenge beliefs that you have held for a very long time, and I'm more than happy to talk about it when we meet, if that's the case. But the simple thing to remember is that whilst dogs are social animals, they don't form rigid hierarchies. There's some evidence which suggests that dogs who have never lived with humans might form interactions where they give way over certain resources, but they don't form a rigid hierarchy. And even if they did, if they form a rigid hierarchy between themselves, there's absolutely no evidence that that hierarchy relates to how they interact with us and how we interact with them. Dominance, sort of scientifically, is just described as about access to resources. So I am dominant over you if I beat you to the piece of chocolate cake that's on the side. If you defer to my desire for that chocolate cake, I am dominant over you. So, but in another situation, you may be dominant over me because you get the glass of wine that I was after. So dominance is not a personality trait. You can't have a dominant dog generally. They may be dominant in certain circumstances because they access the resource, whether that's you, a toy, another dog, a piece of food, because they access the resource more in that circumstance than another dog. But there will be times when the other dog will access a different resource first, have priority access to it. So you don't get a dominant dog. It's not a personality trait. It describes a relationship between individuals. The other thing to bear in mind is that dogs do not seek dominance, seek status. In fact, the MRI scans that people can now do of dogs whilst they're awake suggest that dogs don't even have the part of the brain that would make them motivated by status. It's a human thing. We are all about being first, being top. We talk about being top dog, but it's a human interpretation, not a dog interpretation. So they're not motivated by status. They're motivated by access to your attention, your lap, your sofa, the treats on the floor, the toys in the cupboard, whatever it is. They're motivated by access to things. They're motivated by the resources, the outcomes, rather than simply because they want to be top. So that's sort of, I think, the final thing to think about really is that the original studies which talked about hierarchies within wolves were fundamentally flawed and have been described as such by the person who did them. And the other thing is that dogs are not descended from wolves. So learning what wolves may or may not do in the wild, and we now know they form family groups, not dominance hierarchies, and sort of relating that to how dogs interact with each other or how dogs interact with humans makes about as much sense as studying chimpanzees to learn about how we should bring up our children. They are different species, they evolved from a common ancestor, but what makes dogs dogs is their relationship with us. So what we should be interested in is studying the relationship between dogs and humans, not what wolves did. You do not have a wolf in your living room, no matter what some TV programs or some outdated trainers may have you believe. You have a domesticated animal who thinks that humans are awesome. So what we need to do is work with them to get the best out of them, to understand what motivates them. And if your dog wants to sleep on the sofa, it's because it's warm and it smells of you and it's comfortable, not because they're being dominant. If they want to get through doorways first, it's because it's fun and it's exciting and there's great things out there, not because it's being dominant. By all means, teach them to be polite in doorways. I think it's a great self-control exercise, but I teach it not because I want to make sure that my dogs know I'm pack leader. I teach them it because it's self-control and it's safety. Likewise, you don't have to eat before your dogs. You don't have to pretend to take food out of their food bowl. They probably think you're bonkers if you do that. You just need to teach them to have manners around their food. You need to make sure that they're calm as the food bowl goes down, because that's safe, because that's polite, because it's a great self-control exercise. So there's loads more research out there, there's loads more reading to do on this topic, and it will change. It's changed in the 10 years that I've been studying dogs, and I'm sure it will change again as we get to know more. But at this stage, I would say to you, enjoy your relationship with your dog, understand they do what works, do not be worried about them being dominant. And if they're showing aggressive behaviour, we need to look at why. We need to look at what is it that's bothering them. Are they scared? Are they fearful? What is it that is provoking that aggressive behaviour in that circumstance? But I can guarantee you it's not because they're dominant.